Okay, this is cool. You guys can see me, hear me.
Yes.
Now you can use the chat window. Can you hear me, see me? Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, this is a better way. Great. Hope you guys are doing well. Preparation, hopefully going in the right direction. If not going at the right pace, still if it's going in the right direction, it's fine. Okay, great. Let me start with the doubts. Right pace, right direction. Good to know that, Jagdish. Okay, you guys can see the screen, right?
Yeah, CJ.
Cool. So Garfield, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Is it possible for a verb-ing form word to function as a main verb in a sentence without the use of an auxiliary verb? So the answer is very clear. It's never possible. Okay, you don't need to have any doubt about this rule. There is no exception to this. A verb-ing word without a helping verb can never act as a verb. Okay, a verb-ing word can act as a modifier or can act as a noun, but it can never act as a verb without a helping verb. There is no exception to this. Okay, or they would always act as modifiers. So they can act as modifiers or they can act as nouns depending upon the sentence which they are a part of. In the attached official correct sentence, kindly help understand occupying is a modifier here. Is a verb-ing modifier modifying the subject, which is fewer than 400 rhinos. So these rhinos is a subject and the modifier is occupying a small fraction of the species formal range. Okay, it's a verb-ing modifier modifying rhinos. Okay, and whenever a verb-ing word is modifying a noun, the noun is always doing the action. Okay, now this is in terms of the meaning. Whenever a verb-ing word is modifying a noun, that noun is always a doer of that action depicted in that verb-ing. Right? Because verb-ing word, it's coming essentially from a verb. It's verb-ing. So meaning-wise, it always depicts some kind of action, right? It's always depicting some kind of action. Okay. So here rhinos are the doer of that action. Does that make sense? Any doubts with respect to that? Okay, makes sense to one person. Okay, two. Others, is it making sense? What I said, did that make sense? Or especially Garfield, if he's here. Okay. We are discussing the doubts, the Barishi. Cool. Let's look at, yeah, so it's not a verb. Let's look at the second one. Use of in that in general. Okay. Okay, you are Garfield. You just discussed. We just discussed your doubt, Devarshi. Just said verb-ing word can never act as a verb without a helping verb. That's a rule without exception. Okay, just need to remember that. So, Tushar, you are saying occupying is modifying fewer. No, fewer is not the noun there. fewer than 400 rhinos is the complete noun. Fewer is just an adjective for rhinos there, right? Fewer than 400 rhinos. So rhinos is the noun that comes after the initial verb-ing modifier occupy. So Abhishek, yes, in general, whenever you have a verb-ing modifier at the beginning or at the end, it will make sense with the context. When I say context, with the main verb. Okay, but you don't really need to worry a lot about it. The point is you're presenting something relevant to the context with the verb and it needs to make sense with the subject. That's the main thing here. Fewer than 400 is adjective, right? This is just telling you the number, right? It could be just 400 rhinos, but since you have fewer than 400, you're saying fewer than 400 rhinos. Should we attack? It's not about attacking, it's about just understanding. Of course, you need to understand the meaning to be able to apply grammar rules. Otherwise, you're just mechanically applying grammar rules, which is not going to help. Right? Only if you know the meaning you're trying to communicate, can you use grammar to communicate that meaning. If you don't even know what you're trying to communicate, then for what purpose are you using grammar? Okay, let's look at the second one. Sebi, use of in that. In general, I found different usages of in that. In that essentially is an abbreviated form of in a way that. For example, Sabi is intelligent in that he can solve any question. Okay, so he's intelligent in a way that he can solve any question. And in a lot of contexts, one of the meanings you would say associated within that, if you just search online, is because. So it's used in both these ways, in a way that and because. That's the literal meaning of in that. Okay. If you search on Google, I think the first meaning that comes up is because or in that. And again, these usages, you need not really ask a GMAT expert, right? It's just standard English. So you can just search online. You can just search on dictionaries to see what is the way this is used. Okay. Coffee prices rose sharply. Okay, what is the doubt here? And is there a meaning error in option D? In option E, concern or possibility damage? Does it denote action in state of damaging? Coffee prices rose sharply, posting their biggest one-day gain in almost 3 years. Okay. After a weekend's cold snap, after this snap raised concern of the world's largest crop. So this is an issue. If you think about it in terms of meaning, essentially in option D, it's saying the concern is of the world's largest crop. And then you have a modifier for the crop. But the concern is of the crop. No, the concern is not of the crop. The concern is that the crop may get damaged. This is a very common way GMAT especially distorts sentences. And I think one of the reasons probably they are doing it is that's also the common way we distort sentences. Here we need a clause, a concern. Then you need a proper idea after concern. What is the concern? That the crop could be damaged. But instead of that, what they will do is they will give you a preposition phrase. So concern of the world's largest crop, and then a modifier for the crop. That does not make sense if you're reading it per structure. It means the concern is of the crop, which is nonsense, right? The concern is the crop could be damaged. So that is the meaning issue in option D. In option E, concern of possibly damaging, does it denote action in state of damaging? Uh, does it mean denote an action in state of damaging? Not necessarily. Of course, there is some sense of ongoing action because it's a verb gerund, right? First of all, we need to understand it. Verb ing here is acting as a gerund or a noun, right? Gerund is just a technical word when verb ing is acting as a noun. Okay, so you have a concern of possibly damaging the world's largest crop. So yeah, the concern is of damaging that crop. Is there some kind of continuity? Yeah. For example, if you say demonstrating outside the parliament is a good idea versus demonstration outside the parliament is a good idea. Okay. What I'm saying is there are two sentences. Let me. Okay. So what I'm saying is, let me write it here. Demonstrating outside the parliament is a good idea. Just taking an example, not giving you ideas here. The other is demonstration outside the parliament, the act of demonstrating essentially. Demonstration outside the parliament is a good idea. So when you say demonstrating, there is some sense of continuity of action. You're talking about some ongoing action, doing that action. So you're focusing on the doing of that action. Okay, so there is some sense of continuity denoted by a verb ing word. So that is fine. After so Akansha, uh, there are a lot of words in English that play multiple roles, right? And that creates a lot of confusion. After can be a preposition, but after can also be a conjunction. It can it can also introduce a dependent clause. For example, after I came to know Akansha, I could see her brilliance, whatever, right? So after I came to know Akansha, this is a dependent clause, right? So after can act as a dependent clause marker, it can also act as a preposition phrase. So here, after is followed by a clause. So it's here acting as a conjunction, okay, dependent clause marker. So you need to be open. It could be playing the role of a preposition or a subordinating conjunction. It's a dependent clause here. Okay. Okay, this is a clause. From, after to concern. Yeah, and then we have a modifier for concern. So you can say till the end of the sentence, it's just an after clause, right? Okay. So I'm just moving ahead, okay, because we have a few doubts and we have limited time. Okay, this is an interesting question. I've seen in the past that many people don't know this concept. Okay, let me explain it. Do you guys, how many of you know the idea of a noun clause? How many of you this concept called a noun clause? Yes, no. If you know yes, then say yes. If you don't know, then say no. Others? That's it. Okay, many people don't know this. So there is a concept of a noun clause, and that's being going on in option D there. If you guys don't know the concept of noun clause, very briefly, it's a clause acting as a noun. Of course, that's normally not going to be uh, enough of an explanation. So you can research it after our session. So there is a concept called noun clause. Now, this is a very common mistake people make. Let's look at this construction. Uh, I care about how you feel. Let's look at this. Does this sentence seem fine to you? Yes, no? I care about how you feel. Is this a fine sentence? Okay. So basically here, about is a preposition. You can say I care about some X. Okay. So essentially you need a noun here, some noun, because about is a preposition. So you need a noun here. I care about X, or I care about your feelings. I care about my laptop and all that. Instead of that, you have how you feel. Okay. How you feel is a clause because you have a subject you and you have a verb feel. Okay. So you have both subject and verb. This is an example of a noun clause. Okay. A clause acting as a noun. Okay, that is a very brief introduction. Now, the case here is, in case of noun clauses, the subject always appears before the verb. Okay, when we are asking questions, the verb appears first, right? How do you feel, right? So do appears first. Now let's take this example. This is the correct option, option E. So here also, this is a noun clause. How frequently the inventory turnovers can be crucial to profits. So this is the subject. This is the verb. Sorry. How frequently? Sorry. Okay, this is a mistake. The inventory is the subject. Turns over is the verb. Okay. Can be, not sure whether the entire sentence is visible here. Okay. Can be is a common verb for these two nouns. Sorry. Okay, now people who are new to SC or who haven't done much of SC, you may find it very nuanced. Okay. Can be is a verb for both of these nouns together. Okay. For the inventory, the verb is turns or turns over. So the verb appears after the subject in a noun clause. Now in option D, the verb is appears before the subject inventory. Okay, subject is inventory, the verb complete verb is turned over, but a part of the verb is appearing before the subject. Now this is wrong. Okay, in a noun clause, you cannot have a part or the entire verb before the subject. That is wrong. So the way to correct it is how frequently the inventory is turned over. Okay, so the way to correct this part is how frequently the inventory is turned over. Does this concept make sense? That in a noun clause, a verb cannot be before the subject. Others? I'm not talking about the overall sentence. This particular concept. Okay, just focusing on this concept which is asked there. There is a second reason why option D is wrong. The reason is when you're talking about inventory turns over, you use an active form there, inventory turns over. Now this is, I would categorize this error into a quality error, not a significant error. But when you say inventory is turned over, but there is no person, there is no specific doer of who is turning over the inventory. Okay. So when we say economy grows, we don't say economy is grown by somebody, because that's a phenomenon that happens on its own, right? Whatever, depending upon whatever happens in the market. So similarly, we say inventory turns over. We don't say inventory is turned over by somebody. Okay. So that is another issue. But the main bigger issue, grammatical issue, is that the verb is before the subject. There are other issues in this question. I'm not really discussing the entire question here. If we end up discussing them, then we're going to just discuss this question. Any doubts with respect to the two issues we have talked about? Active, passive. The second is the verb before the subject. Uh, there is no such rule. GMAT doesn't really, of course, in a lot of constructions, if you can write in active voice, it makes a sense, it makes a sentence qualitatively better. But there are official questions in which the correct option is in the passive voice. Okay, let's continue. Why usage of should is not correct? Because which option? I'm not sure. Should is again a moral obligation kind of thing. that their slayer should acquire certain characteristics. Okay, should indicates a kind of moral obligation, which does not make sense here. That is what makes it wrong. Okay, I'll move on. Right answer is option B. How can or be used 40 feet? Okay. So you are saying it's rarely, so there is a meaning difference here. Okay, so there is a meaning difference. Let me highlight it. So let's say you want to talk about a person, and you say he is really happy and forgiving. Okay, just a crude example. So what you are saying is this thing together, it happens rarely, right? This thing together happens rarely. But now if you say he is really happy or forgiving, you are saying even individually happy or forgiving, even these are rare. There is a meaning difference. In the first case, in this sentence, he could be happy 90% of the times. But if he is not forgiving in those times, the statement is fine. That he is rarely happy and forgiving. That he is rarely both of these things. But he could be one of these things most of the time. Now, if you say he is rarely happy or forgiving, now in this case, he can't be happy 90% of the time because you're saying either of these cases is rare. Does it make sense? So right, it could be that you're trying to communicate any of these meanings. So here we are trying to communicate that it's seldom more than 40 feet wide or 12 feet deep, right? So again, we are saying individually also it's rare. It's seldom. Okay. Does it make sense, Debarshi? Why they are necessary? You're presenting a modifier for a canal, right? I would be open to both. How do you know that it's seldom both? Why can't it be seldom individually? Right? You're talking about a canal. It's a modifier for a canal. Yeah, it could be and also. I'd be open to that. Right? So here or is also fine. Just there is a meaning difference, but both could be fine. How do I know which one is right? As long as it's logical, I'll be open to it. Okay, I'm not getting into that, Seb. Okay, what is the exact reason following statement is? No, this is not the right way to ask. Okay, if you have a specific question around this statement, you can ask. Okay, Jaktej. Kindly consider the two examples. Okay, so probably others have not seen this example, but I have read this question before. So Jaktej, the difference is, you are right that In example 1, option B is eliminated because it uses two past perfect tenses. The reason is that there is no event in the simple past, or there is no simple past event here in this case, in the first sentence. So it does not make sense to use past perfect at all, even, let alone for both, even for one, because there is no event in the simple past. Right? So what would make sense is you use simple past for one and past perfect for the other one. In the second example, there is already an event in the past which is announced. Now you want to say that both the things, there are two other events which happened before announced. Okay, so that's why the second one is right. Okay. Okay. Let's move on. Present participle modifies phrase and options. Can present participle modify? It's a very unique case of comma verb+ing modifying a phrase. It is possible in a very specific scenario when that phrase is a part of the clause. Okay, there is an official question. What is that? Plantation owner. I'll share with you the official question. Let me just show you here. This is the official question. Paper test question appeared in OG10. In this case, option A is the answer. Setting free more than 500 slaves. In this case, I believe it's modifying by filing a deed of emancipation. And that's how it set those people free. Right? Can you see that? But in this case, it is this is the only sentence I've seen. Okay, in which comma verb+ing, but in this case, it's very specific structure. I think it makes more sense with filing a deed of emancipation. So it's stunned by filing, and then filing led to setting free, because it's saying stunned by filing a deed of emancipation. Okay, but this is a very unique case in which how I would understand this is possible because this filing a deed of emancipation is a part of this whole clause. It's not a separate modifier. In a way, it's not a separate comma, some modifier presenting additional information about the clause. And it's very clear. The doer also is very clear that the Robert Carter is the doer of the filing, meaning wise. Right? So in this specific context, we have an example in which comma setting is going with the this preposition phrase. This preposition phrase having a verb+ing. In Starfish question, you have sometimes by the animal overcompensating. Of course, first of all, in this case, this is a separate right? Modifier, you are presenting about the entire class, sometimes by the animal overcompensating. And secondly, okay, this is not a part of the main clause. Secondly, the issue is sometimes by the animal, overcompensating is just a modifier for the animal, right? Sometimes by the animal, that's so by the animal is the preposition phrase, then you have overcompensating as a modifier for the animal. Can you see that in the starfish question? So that preposition phrase by the animal, yeah, does not make sense to be modified by a comma verb+ing. Okay, let me see if I can increase the font of this. I can't probably. Okay. Okay. This is a CR question, probably some other time. Right now, you focus on SC. Okay. Okay. Question of the day. What is the doubt? D answer is E. D looks grammatically correct. Tushar. My reason for would be purely based on, yeah, there's a quality issue, and another quality issue is when you have an independent clause and the subject is a pronoun, it generally refers to the subject of the preceding clause. In this case, it would go back to asteroid, right? Tushar, are you there? Right? Since you're starting another independent clause, it marks, it would go back to the subject, ideally. That's not a deterministic rule, okay, to be clear. But that's a strong preference, I would say. Okay, what that means is I would have a strong preference against such an option, but I would not reject it just on this reason. Structurally, for it to refer to an event is difficult, right? Because an event is just a modifier for the previous clause. And now you're starting an independent clause, which starts with the subject as it, right? So structurally, the sentence is, this asteroid slammed into North America and it marks the end of geologic era. That's the main sentence, right? And then in between you have a modifier, that's fine. The main sentence is, this asteroid slammed into North America and it marks the end of geologic era. Ashmit, right? Must is not what I'm saying. I'm saying structurally, there is a strong preference that it should go back to the subject of the preceding independent clause here. Okay, as I said, I'll not take a call entirely on this unless of course I come across an option that is all right in all ways. Okay. Can you explain error in option A? Okay. Again, you have to explain your doubts, Heavy. I'll skip this for the time being because we have just 15 minutes left. Not an SC doubt, you may take this at the end. Sure. Okay. Nikita has a few doubts. What is the doubt here? Do we use specific preposition with the word forbidden? Yes. So forbidden to is the correct one, not forbidden from. Where did that go? Not sure which you're talking about. Forbidden to is right. So generally, we have two words here: prohibited from and forbidden to. Okay, a lot of people have confusion around because they mean the same essentially, but the usage is prohibited from and forbidden to. Um, Reason for eliminating answer choice C. So Nikita, again, you have to mention your reason why you find it correct, or given your understanding of what is given here. So let me just read it since this is your first out. So unlike psychiatrists, psychologists have historically been forbidden to prescribe their patients drugs. Have been forbidden to prescribe drugs for their patients, prescribe their patients drugs. But in 2002, in New Mexico, the privilege to prescribe began to be granted to these psychologists. They've historically been forbidden to drugs, prescribe their patients. Prescribe drugs. I think both are fine here, just that B is clearer to read, that describe drugs for their patients rather than to prescribe their patients drugs. When I say just a clarity issue, it means it's fine. Many verbs have two nouns back to back. For example, Parish is gifting Jagtej a car. Is that a right construction? So Jagtej a car, there are two nouns right after the verb, right back to back. So right, so technically there is a concept of direct object, indirect object, but not getting into that. Essentially, the meaning is you are gifting somebody and what you are gifting. So there are two nouns: whom you are gifting and what you are gifting. Similarly here, whom you are prescribing and what you are prescribing. So this is fine. In 2002, New Mexico began granting prescribing privileges to these people. In 2002 in New Mexico, the privilege to prescribe began to be granted. Yeah, again, I think it's just a quality issue. There is no grammar issue I can find here. It's just that instead of saying that New Mexico began prescribing or the country started allowing this, you're saying in this country, this began or this started to happen. Okay, it makes more sense to give it a sense that the country started doing that instead of just that it began to happen in that country. It's as if it's happening on its own. Okay, so there is just a quality issue here. I believe there is no grammar issue I can find in option C. Okay. In option A, and is used as two independent but can. Okay, let me open it. you're saying which options do you have a doubt in? Option A, and is used as two independent events. India was the first nation to declare dolphins uh, to be non-human persons with their own rights and ban the capture and import of them. What you're saying? And it was the first nation in India banned. This was first nation to declare dolphins persons with their own rights. Well, I would be fine, even if these are two different things. I'll be fine with the idea that you are declaring them to be persons and you're also banning the capture. Of course, it also makes sense since now you're declaring them persons. Uh, that's also leading to banning their capture. But I will be fine with this meaning also. Okay. Again, the point is to remain open, whatever can be logically justified. Just because an option is wrong, we shouldn't call everything wrong there. Okay. So I'll be fine with banning being parallel to that. It was the first nation to declare these dolphins persons, and it was the first nation to ban. Okay, first of all, ban is parallel to declare. To declare and the first nation to ban. It's not a verb here for parallel to was because ban would be wrong. Ban is plural. India is singular. Okay. Does that make sense, Nikita? Okay. But somehow these two events are related and hence, okay, as I said, is there any, I think idiomatic use, I believe, is declare X, Y, not declare X to be Y. That's what I believe. Okay. I'm not very good with idioms. So I think 2B is probably an issue here. Okay. For example, you declare these dolphins non-human persons. Declare X and then Y. That's it. Okay. But again, I will say cross-check. In option E, what is the role of banning? It is giving description. Yeah. So it's a comma verb+ing. So they declared dolphins non-human persons. Okay. So they declared, right, the first nation to declare dolphins to be non-human persons. And essentially it's saying declaring this dolphin capture and importation banning, sorry, I'm reading declaring. So banning, yeah, so here it's essentially presenting a natural consequence or a consequence of that they declared non-person humans with their own rights. They declared the dolphins non-human persons. And essentially, that also meant banning the capture and importation for the purpose of entertainment, as it should be for persons, right? Does that make sense? Declare is something considered. Declare is something common to pronounced. He pronounced something, pronounce XY. So declared XY, Jagdej. To be mean, to become. Not sure about that, Abhishek. Yeah, banning is presenting additional information, comma verb+ing at the end of this clause. Okay. Can they here refer back to investment officers? Now, investment officers is a singular noun with a possessive form. Okay, so there is a difference between investment. Let me explain. So there is a difference between this one and this one. This is possessive form of a single officer. This is a possessive form of multiple officers. Okay. So they can refer to investment officers in this construction, in the second construction, but they definitely cannot refer to investment officer because it's singular here. Does it make sense, Nikita? Okay. Since many people, so Atul, this is a generic question. I'll take it up. Atul is here? No. Okay, so let's look at this one. Since many people felt that by using elephants in its facts, in its acts. Acha, in the circus acts. I think the ticket itself fell dramatically and the circus eventually shut down. Doesn't make sense. We use uh, um, a present continuous tense here. Ashmit, the circus has shut down already, right? So it doesn't make sense to use a present continuous tense. Okay. And so when you report, if you say many people felt that the circus was engaging in cruelty, okay, this is pure reporting. What that means is you are not saying anything about the present. If you say many people felt that circus was engaging in cruelty, you're just talking about past, what they felt, and what they felt at that time was circus was engaging in cruelty. What is the present scenario? It could still be engaging in cruelty. Okay. So even if the circus is still engaging in cruelty, the first statement would still be fine. Somebody is reporting that many people felt that the circus was engaging in cruelty. Because the present is open there. You're not saying anything about the present. Okay. The usage of and is wrong. It's because of the foreign tickets. Now there are a lot of cases. A lot of people actually get confused in such cases. That they think, okay, there should be a relationship between first and second part. Okay, but if you just observe in your daily life also, we make a lot of sentences in which we use and, even though there may be a connection. Okay, if if there is an option that's playing on that aspect, then you become, yeah, it makes sense that way. But otherwise, you remain open that, okay, it's presenting two information that the ticket sales uh, fell dramatically and the circles shut down eventually. Okay, you are right. Meaning wise, right now it's not presenting any causal relationship between these two ideas. And logically, we can think that there should be. Okay, so your stance should be that you remain open to this. That, okay, yeah, there is a slight meaning issue, but everything else is absolutely fine there. Right? How do you know that the option is playing on that aspect? By comparing it to other options. If you come across two options which are absolutely okay in all aspects, just that the only difference is one is presenting causal relationship, then of course you can go with that one. Okay, this is a similar confusion people have in the starfish question also. This is the question I take up in the session. Not sure whether you remember it. Uh, you can look at this question. So here, this people have a confusion that overcompensating, growing an extra one or two. I think option B is the answer. So now people have a lot of hard time understanding that overcompensating and growing an extra one or two should not be and. There should not be an and between them. Growing an extra one or two is an additional information about overcompensating. And then people just take a call on this meaning issue. Okay. So you will see that in other sentences also, that yeah, in cases you may feel that there should be a causal relationship, but if that is the only issue, keep it on hold. Okay, it is entirely possible that you reject it for this meaning issue, which is acceptable, that the author may be just presenting this happens and this happens, and then you end up selecting an option which is wrong for big reasons. Okay. Okay. The doctors have managed to significantly reduce the mortality rate and the public is very pleased for. So I've read through it. uh, it is not really here trying to refer to significantly reduce, Parish, because if you replace that, it wouldn't make sense. The public is very pleased with them for doing to significantly reduce, right? It is trying to refer to an idea of reducing, right? But there is no such noun there, which is which is depicting idea of reducing. So it cannot stand for any noun. You are thinking that okay, to significantly reduce, it's an infinitive, can act as a noun. That's fine. And you can say here it's acting as a noun, that doctors have managed this thing, right? But if you replace it, it doesn't make sense. So it's not really referring to significantly reduce. Yeah, doing so would be correct, I believe. Okay, infinitive can act as a modifier, can act as a noun also. So that idea is correct, that it can act as a noun. No, in this case, it can't really jump over in the meeting. Okay. Yeah, because of in the last meeting is modifying chose. So in the last meeting is essentially an adverb, modifying the verb chose. Okay. It is said that both events which happened in the past, which have no bearing. So we are saying two unrelated events in the past. Past perfect cannot be used. Okay. So now the thing is, for me, it will never be a deterministic rule. For the simple reason, it's very hard if you have actually tried to figure out whether two events are related or not. It's not easy, right? So I would never consider it a deterministic issue. Okay, for a person who has done PhD in English, it may be, but I'll always be open. Okay, I think we have one doubt, Ashmit's doubt remaining. Okay. I want to build stamina, don't want to utilize unofficial marks. You don't want to utilize official or unofficial marks. You don't want to utilize official marks. So which official mark is decent? Decent official marks are Veritas, Manhattan, Expert Global is also decent, right? I'm not really sure about how decent they are, but they are decent. They're not bad. So, yeah, but of course, since it doesn't make sense to use official marks to build stamina, so you can use these marks. Even Kaplan, you can use. I want to take GMAT around fourth week of August. So I'm thinking of taking marks on the weekend from now on. So to see strategy, okay, consider. Yeah, this is okay. As long as you're doing enough analysis of whatever you are doing, it's fine. The only thing is when you are doing unofficial marks, non-official marks, don't learn new concepts from them. Because their new things may not be right. Okay, just try to cement your existing concepts. Whatever concepts you already know, just try to see whether you are able to apply those concepts on the non-official questions. But if you end up learning new things, those new things may or may not be correct. And that's the problem with non-official marks. Any link to revised concept, what does that mean? Sajid, were you part of GMAT intensive? Or no? Okay. You were not part of our classroom course, right? Yeah. So, so to revise, you can. There is no link as such. Of course, there are random resources on GMAT Club, but I would suggest that take a course. There are many good courses out there, or you can read books, Manhattan books for SC, Manhattan book for Quant, Power Score CR Bible. Okay. Don't just randomly browse internet. That would be my suggestion. Okay, I think we seem to be done and slightly over time. Okay. Okay. So yeah, Sajal. So you can look at these sources. Great. Thank you guys. When can we connect? You can write an email, Sajal. And then we can take our discussion forward from there. Cool. Thank you so much. Bye bye. I had a great time. Hope it helped you. Sajal. So cj@gmatwithcj.com. ठीक है चलो बाय बाय